My name is Nassine Saps.
Let me ask you a question. Has anything ever happened to you that you couldn't explain? That made you feel sort of foolish when you tried to tell somebody about it? Well, if it has, you have plenty of company, as you'll soon see.
Aloha, this is Layara. I haven't been on for a while. I just wanted to tell you guys that these Maui fires, everything about them is screaming inside job, deliberate Illuminati sacrifice. Happened on the 8th of August, and the 8th numerologically stands for completion, the end of a cycle, renewal, beginning of a new cycle. And I wanted to tell you right now, weather modification owns the world. It controls us, the Illuminati. They play God with the weather. I know that this fire was fabricated with space-based weaponry, Project Bluebeam, HARP. You can just see the clouds, too, in the sky. The sky was full of chem clouds when this was going on. They whipped up the winds to like 60, 80, some crazy-ass hours per mile, when they have as much ability to turn down the wind as they do to turn up the wind, as to bring in the rain, as to cause an earthquake, as to set off a volcano, as to simulate a thunderstorm, a tornado. I mean, they could part the damn sea with this Star Wars weaponry and these gyrotron stations underground. All I can say in a quick nutshell is that these Maui fires, they were deliberate. Now big, huge money and corporations are coming in. It's becoming a business deal. They're like going to buy out Lahaina instead of rebuild. I'm going to tell you right now, you need to wake the hell up and realize that these Maui fires are an inside job.
Now, you might be wondering why these government officials were doing everything they could to cause a tragedy like this one. Well, it might have something to do with the fact that they plan on turning Los Angeles into, guess what? A smart city by the year 2028. We already know what smart cities are.
All right, friends, you're not going to want to miss this one. So I've been seeing a lot about smart cities, and I decided to do a little digging myself. According to the World Economic Forum's website, 36 cities over 22 countries are participating in these smart cities, but many more is to come. So what is a smart city? A smart city stands for Surveillance Monitoring Analysis Reporting Technology. Basically, a digital ID will be given to every resident that will track in real time all of their daily movements, their activities, their spending habits, even their carbon footprint. They will be given 15-minute travel times to complete their daily activities unless they have a permit. And if they exceed those 15 minutes, they can be denied access to their spending and their activities that they need to do for the day. So, of course, you're like, I'm not going to move to one of those cities, right? Well, here's the thing. Because of the laws governing the Agenda 2030 land development, the government can actually seize polluted lands and force the residents to move. So if the government deems the land and water around you polluted, they can force you to move from your homes to these cities. So all of these train derailments, food processing plant fires, and other ecological disasters that are happening, they're beginning to make a lot more sense now.
Most of the housing has siding on it, and that siding melts so easily, yet none of the siding melted. There is not the damage. All of the houses are taken out, trees are in place. It's crazy. I think I'm making my point here. This is Jasper's as well. Okay. Now we're getting into the Maui fires. This was an interesting fire because take a look at this, right? There is what they call the miracle property. All of the other houses were taken out. Look at them all. Trees are still standing. But this one house and the land beside it, green as can be. Look at the fire didn't even jump over. There is no damage, no heat damage on the side of the house. The owner said, well, it's concrete. So, that's why it survived the fire. Well, weren't these ones? That looks like a concrete foundation. I think there's something else. When I look at this, I go, how can that be? The temperature of that fire to incinerate, everything around it, and nothing here is affected. It's not just a little grass fire. This is a raging inferno, as you can see. So who are the owners of that property? They call it the miracle property. I thought, I want to look into Dora Atwood and Trip Milliken. So this is a couple that owned that miracle house, or still own it. And which is, what was it, 1271 Front Street, something like that. Anyways, they own several properties. And this is another project that they took on. They actually lifted this house and saved it, and they brought it to their 50 acres in Massachusetts, I think it was. It was a Westport Historical Commission. And she says that, she was informed about this house one day just by chance. But it also turns out that her husband and her are part of a committee in Westport. So we'll get to that. Dora, seen here, is a photographer, or an artist, and a very good artist. She comes from many generations of artists and authors. And this is one of her pieces of work that just happens to be displayed in an embassy. We won't say any more about that. Tripp, on the other hand, he is, principal of Aurora Financial Advisor. It's all about investments in Massachusetts, yeah. And so he manages high net worth portfolios, and he sits on several councils, and one of them is Westport's Agricultural Open Space Preservation Trust Fund Council. Didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. He's also president of the Westport Land Conservation Trust. Imagine that. Land conservation. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So the first one I looked up. There is nothing on Westport's site here. They have a water main installation project. No information on that. And they have a land commission. And this is what he is the president of, I believe. So there is an open position for someone to come onto this land commission. And it's open until April 8th, 2025. Again, no information about what they do with this land commission. So I started to look a bit further into the Westport Conservation Trust, which, if I go back here, Tripp, he is the president of the Westport Land Conservation Trust, right? Okay, so 50-year track record of protecting land across Westport, and includes a variety of projects with landowners who have donated land. Imagine. Apparently, all the native land in Lahaina is now being donated without the native people's permission. It's just being scooped up and is being made into something else, which we'll go into. So then I was thinking there's more similarities between Maui and many of the other fires. So where was the fire chief the day of the Maui fire? He was gone. He was off island. Isn't that interesting? Because let me think about it. Wasn't Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, also out of town the day of the fire? Right? Kind of quirky similarities, right? The emergency chief resigns after backlash over wildfire. That is Mrs. Atwater. Where is it here? Miss Atwater says that her husband recently renovated the house. Okay. Why is that? Why is Atwater's stuff underneath Maui's emergency chief resigns following backlash? Well, that's interesting. I didn't notice that before. Huh. I don't want to pull it up. You can, because I don't want the copyright stuff. Okay. Anyways, going into the Lahaina fires again. So they also had something else that was in common. The fire chiefs and the mayor were out of town conveniently the day of the fire, but they also had problems with the water. The water itself, the hydrants, were actually turned off in Lahaina. They turned them on, there was no water, right? So that also happened just recently. This is Pastor JD, and he talks specifically about Lahaina and its plan to be a smart city, and he has evidence of it.
And we provided the links to the original source documentation that Maui, specifically Lahaina, has been marked, I choose that word deliberately, as a smart city. And here's what's sad. This is textbook. The evil crisis is created, the reaction is controlled, and then the final evil solution is executed.
So that goes back to Hegelian, the Hegelian effect, right? It's you have the problem, the solution, and the solution for them is let's create havoc, let's destroy the entire town, and be very marked so the land around it is still preserved, and we start shooting the direct energy weapons out of the sky. And what's interesting about this is it doesn't affect the color blue. So this is Lahaina. You can see here in this picture, right? All that survived are these blue, and they're like plastic. They would have melted, they have a plastic component to them. They should have melted or at least burned. But because of the frequency of this fire, it's not affecting blue or deep colors of green, I believe. So what's happening in China then? Look at this. Chinese are putting blue tarps on their roofs. You can see it. I mean, in the droves. All of a sudden, all these blue roofs are popping up everywhere. They're putting tarps on top of the roof. There you go.